There's a thought, just one, that when fully realized, doesn't just change your life, it ends the life you thought you had to live. It doesn't just open a door, it detonates the entire structure of limitation that you've been taught to believe is reality. This thought is not safe. It's not comforting. It's not the kind of thought you share in casual conversation. It's the kind of thought that once it enters your awareness, creates a ripple that never stops. And the strange thing is, it's not hidden in distant scriptures or locked away in secret societies. It's always been there, waiting for you to be ready, waiting for you to stop pretending that you're not powerful, waiting for you to stop asking for permission. And once you allow it in, you activate something ancient, something raw, something only the elite 1% of dark chosen ones have dared to embody. The world doesn't prepare us for this. We're educated to believe in systems, in structure, in safety. We're taught to follow the light, to avoid the dark, to seek approval, and to distrust the voice inside that whispers. There's more. But that whisper, that voice is the invitation. It's the frequency that calls out only to those who are ready to remember. Because remembering is the most dangerous thing you can do in a world built on forgetting. And here's the truth. The elite 1% aren't chosen by bloodline, birthright, or blessing. They choose themselves. They step into the forbidden. They question what others accept. They look at the veil and say, there's something behind this. And when they tear it, they don't find chaos. They find clarity terrifying in its simplicity, liberating in its power. The thought is this: what if I already am what I've been trying to become? Sit with that. Not as a motivational quote, not as a clever phrase, but as a living code. What if the future you've been chasing already exists inside the version of you you're living right now? What if the strain, the hustle, the spiritual performance, all of it was a distraction from your actual power? This isn't about ego. It's about essence. It's about dropping out of the game of becoming and stepping into the state of being. Because that one thought, I already am, is what turns the key. It's what the dark chosen ones discovered when they stopped seeking enlightenment and started embodying it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is where the split happens. Most people hear this thought and reject it. Their minds say that's too simple, or that can't be true. Because if it is true, then everything they've built their identity around, the story of the seeker, the unworthy, the almost their version of self, must collapse. And collapse it does. Because this thought doesn't fit inside an old paradigm. It doesn't belong in a world where worth is earned or granted. It belongs in a realm where worth simply is. And those who can hold that frequency, who can remain conscious inside that truth, they become something else entirely. They become the ones who no longer need to ascend because they realize they are the mountaintop. But it's not enough to think the thought. You must feel it. You must let it burn through every layer of programming that told you you had to try harder, be better, meditate longer, earn your divinity. You must let it dissolve the identities you've built around being lost, broken, or on the path. Because the path isn't leading you to something. It's leading you back to the moment you realize you never left. That's the paradox. That's the power. And when you can hold that realization without flinching, without trying to explain it away or water it down, the gift wakes up. And the gift is not what you think. It's not superpowers or visions or the ability to control others. It's the ability to see through everything, to see the illusion of effort, the illusion of hierarchy, the illusion of time. You begin to notice how most people are performing even in their spirituality. You see how they wear light like armor, how they speak truth like it's currency. But underneath it all, they're still afraid, still trying, still waiting for something to prove they've made it. But you, when this thought lands in your body, you don't wait anymore. You don't perform. You radiate, you exude. You carry the signature of someone who remembers what others have forgotten. And that's why the world begins to respond to you differently. Doors open not because you knocked, but because you are the key. People listen not because you speak loudly, but because your silence carries weight. Circumstances shift not because you manipulate them, but because your frequency bends the field. That's the gift. Not control coherence, not force resonance. And the elite 1% live in that state, not as a tactic, but as a default. While others are trying to manifest, they are simply matching. While others are affirming, they are embodying. While others are waiting for signs, they are the sign. But this gift comes with a cost. You lose your ability to believe in limitation. You lose your ability to play the victim. You lose your belonging in spaces that celebrate struggle. Because once you embody this thought, I already am, you outgrow the programs that once felt like home. You no longer fit into conversations rooted in lack. You no longer resonate with teachings that depend on obedience. You become dangerous not to truth but to illusion. And that's why the elite 1% stay hidden. Not because they're secretive, because they're sovereign, because they don't need to convince anyone. They are the proof. So now you have the thought. What will you do with it? Will you treat it like a novelty? Or will you let it change you? Will you go back to your old scripts, your old fears, your old identity? Or will you sit in the fire of remembering and let everything that's not truly you burn away? Because that's the threshold. That's the doorway. And only you can walk through it. No one can do it for you. No teacher, no guru, no system. Just you and the one thought that triggers everything. What if I already am what I've been trying to become? Now that the thought has entered you, it's already working. You may not feel it immediately, or maybe you do that slight disorientation, that quiet unraveling of everything you thought was stable. That's not confusion. That's alignment finally beginning to emerge. The identity you've lived with, the one that's been trying so hard to awaken, to succeed, to find purpose, is now being challenged by something deeper, something ancient. And here's the truth. Your soul has been waiting for this confrontation. Because the moment you accept that you already are what you've been trying to become, you begin to notice how much of your life was built on a lie. Not a malicious lie, but a necessary one. One that kept you small enough to survive, but too small to fully live. You begin to realize how deeply the program runs. It's in your speech, your posture, the way you move through rooms, always a little guarded, always slightly hesitant, always waiting for the moment it's finally okay to be powerful. But that moment never comes, because the world doesn't give you permission to wake up. It rewards compliance. It celebrates projections of success, not the raw, unfiltered presence of someone who's become sovereign. That's why this thought is so dangerous. It bypasses the need for external validation and plugs you directly into source. And once that current starts flowing, you become uncontrollable, not chaotic, but ungovernable by anything that doesn't align with your truth. Remember this, the dark chosen ones are not dark because they serve evil. They're dark because they've walked into the shadow without fear. They've stopped running from discomfort. They've stopped outsourcing their power to ideology. They chose to turn inward into the void, and what they found, there wasn't emptiness but origin, the raw, unshaped power of pure awareness. And that's what this thought leads you to. I already am what I've been trying to become. It leads you not to a better version of you, but to the version that was never lost. The one hidden beneath the layers of pretending, performing, and pleasing. The one that doesn't need to be saved, only remembered. But understanding is not embodiment. You can repeat the thought 1,000 times and still live like a stranger to yourself. That's because the thought isn't a mantra. It's a mirror. And when you look into it, it doesn't reflect your ego, it reflects your essence. And essence is terrifying to the false self, because it can't be controlled, it can't be branded, it can't be manipulated, It simply is. And most people aren't ready for that level of truth. They say they want awakening, but what they really want is comfort in a prettier disguise. They want lights, crystals, rituals, but they don't want to face the part of themselves that's been hiding behind the spiritual performance. So I ask you, are you willing to face the part of yourself that doesn't need healing? The part that doesn't need fixing or purging or purifying? The part that's never been broken, only buried? Because that's what this activation demands. It demands that you stop identifying with the seeker and start embodying the source. It demands that you stop delaying your power with stories of not yet. It demands that you stop waiting for the perfect moment and recognize that this is the moment, that the future you've been projecting already lives in the present if you're willing to let go of the illusion that you're not ready. It's here that the resistance comes, not from the world, from within. The part of you that's addicted to the struggle will rise. It will tell you this is arrogant, that you're skipping steps, that you haven't earned it, that you need more proof, more rituals, more suffering. But that voice is the final guardian of the illusion, and your job isn't to fight it. Your job is to see through it, to recognize that it's just a relic of an identity built on survival, and you're no longer here to survive. You're here to create, to command, to remember. Start watching your life differently. Observe where you shrink. Notice where you defer, where you dim, where you hope someone else will give you what you already have. That's the map. Every moment you hesitate is a doorway to reclaim your essence. Every time you play small, you're being invited to expand. But expansion doesn't mean trying harder. It means relaxing into your original size, the size you were before the world taught you to compress. The size of presence. The size of truth. The size of someone who doesn't need to become anything because they already are. Now, something strange starts to happen. As you embody this thought, reality begins reshaping itself around you. People who once held power over you begin to lose their grip. Situations that used to trigger you now dissolve before they land. You no longer attract chaos because your frequency is no longer seeking it. You start to feel empty, but not the kind of empty that's hollow, the kind of empty that's full of potential. A stillness that buzzes with possibility. A silence that speaks louder than words. And in that silence you begin to hear a new voice. Not the voice of lack, but the voice of knowing. That knowing is your compass now. It doesn't explain, it declares. It doesn't ask, it emanates. And the more you trust it, the less you need to prove anything. This is the shift from trying to transmitting, from seeking to standing, from hoping to becoming. And others will feel it. Some will be drawn to you. Others will be repelled. Not because you've changed, but because you've remembered. And that memory holds a frequency that disrupts illusions. You become a mirror that reflects what others are still hiding from. And that can be uncomfortable for them and for you. But you didn't come here to be comfortable. You came here to activate, to awaken, to embody the thought that the world has tried to erase from history. I already am what I've been trying to become. This thought is your rebellion, your return, your initiation into the elite 1% who no longer look outside for confirmation. You don't chase signs, you become the sign. You don't seek alignment, you are alignment. And when that settles into your bones, into your breath, into your gaze, the game changes. Not because you won, but because you stopped playing by rules that never applied to you in the first place. So what happens now? You begin to live as if it's already done. You wake up and move through your day, not as someone becoming, but as someone who remembers. You speak from knowing. You act from clarity. You rest in power. And when doubt arises because it will, you don't spiral. You smile. Because you know that doubt is just the echo of an old identity trying to survive its own death. And you're no longer afraid of that death. You welcome it. Because something greater is being born through you. Not a new version of you, but the real you. The one who has never gone, only veiled. Let's go deeper. If you stopped trying to become, who would you be? If you stopped asking for signs, what would you already know? If you stopped performing, what would your energy say for you before you even spoke? These aren't abstract questions. They are portals, each one a key, each one a test. The elite 1% of dark chosen ones didn't pass these tests by studying. They passed by surrendering. They let go of the need to be someone else and dared to become exactly who they are. Not the safe version, not the polite version, the real version. And that version carries the gift. The gift is not something you get. It's what's revealed when everything that isn't you is stripped away. And what's left is presence, power, precision. You don't need more information. You need integration. You don't need more teachers. You need embodiment. And that begins today. Right now, in this moment, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now. You've crossed the threshold now. The thought is no longer just an idea, it's a vibration. It's subtly working in your system like a code, rewriting the very structure of how you perceive yourself and reality. And this is where it gets real. Because embodying the thought I already am what I've been trying to become isn't the end of the journey, it's the destruction of the illusion that there was a journey at all. You begin to realize that everything you were trying to reach was already encoded in your presence, but you were too busy chasing shadows to feel it. And now, those shadows begin to fall away. Not because you fought them, but because you no longer need what they were protecting you from. This is the phase most people aren't ready for, the phase beyond the search. Because the search becomes an identity. The chasing becomes familiar. And when that dissolves, you're left with something that's both terrifying and beautiful: stillness. Not the kind of stillness that's passive, the kind that pulses with raw potential. The kind that doesn't need to do, because it is. And in that stillness, the gift fully awakens. Not all at once, but in waves. It shows up in the way you move without urgency, in the way you speak without needing to be heard, in the way people react to you without knowing why they're drawn to you or intimidated by you. That's the presence of someone who's no longer trying to become. That's the frequency of a dark chosen one. Now let's get practical, because this isn't about floating off into mystical abstraction. This is about real-world embodiment. In every conversation, in every decision, in every breath, you now have a choice to act as the version of you that's still becoming, or the version that already is. When you speak, ask yourself, am I speaking from lack or from knowing? When you move, ask, am I chasing or am I transmitting? When you doubt, ask, is this a memory of who I was or a message from who I am? These questions aren't mental gymnastics. They're recalibration tools. They reel in you to the only place where true power exists, the now. The version of you that already is. And this is the secret the elite 1% of dark chosen ones knew all along. The more you try to become, the more you affirm that you aren't. And in the quantum field, that affirmation is the frequency that reality mirrors back. You can't fake embodiment. You can't trick the field. You must become the thing, and then the world has no choice but to respond to you accordingly. This is why the rare few are able to bend reality, not because they're special, but because they stopped pretending they weren't. They stopped negotiating their power. They stopped asking for proof. They became the proof. There's a reason you're drawn to this. It's not entertainment. It's not curiosity. It's activation. Something in you is remembering, something ancient, something that was never lost, only suppressed. And now it's rising. And with that rise comes responsibility, not to others, to yourself, to no longer betray your knowing, to no longer delay your embodiment, to no longer pretend you don't feel what you feel, know what you know, are what you are. Because every time you pretend, you dilute your signal, and that signal is everything. It's the frequency that builds your reality, attracts your reflections, and shapes the world around you. Understand this clearly: the dark chosen ones are not chosen because of their superiority. They're chosen because of their willingness. Willingness to see the world as it is, not as they were told. Willingness to walk alone when the crowd demands conformity. Willingness to trust the voice that says, "You're already there." And most people hear that voice and ignore it. They go back to their rituals, their affirmations, their seeking. But you're still here. And that means you're ready to stop running and start radiating, to stop building a future and start embodying a frequency. That's the real game. And you're now playing at a level most don't even know exists. So how do you live from this place? You begin by noticing. Notice where your energy contracts, where you still pretend you're not powerful, where you still wait for external confirmation. And when you catch it, not with judgment, but with clarity, you shift. You breathe deeper. You stand taller. You speak slower. You move with the conviction of someone who knows the throne was never outside of them. It was always in their spine, waiting for them to sit up and claim it. Then, you let go of urgency. You let go of proving. You stop needing to be seen because you are the seeing. You stop needing to be understood because you are the understanding. And from that space, the world bends. Opportunities appear. People shift. Time collapses. Not because you forced it, because you matched it. You became the version of you that no longer needed to chase outcomes. And that version is the one the universe responds to instantly. Not eventually. Instantly. But this requires mastery. Not over others, over your state. Can you hold the frequency when the world tells you to doubt it? Can you stay rooted when old emotions rise? Can you remember who you are when everything around you tries to make you forget? That's the edge. That's the discipline. Not to be perfect, but to be present. To hold the thought not as a concept, but as a cellular truth. I already am what I've been trying to become. Let that echo in you. Let it become your silence. Let it become your breath. And yes, people will project. They'll say you've changed, that you're unrelatable, that you're too confident, too different, too much. And you'll smile, because they're right. You've remembered. And memory is magnetic. It reorganizes everything. Some will fall away. Some will rise to meet you. But you won't chase either. You'll stay centered in your knowing. And your knowing will do the work for you. So here's the final layer. The reason this thought is so powerful is because it ends the separation between you and your power. It ends the gap. It dissolves the illusion that there's something to reach. And when that gap ends, the game ends. You stop playing the role of someone climbing a ladder. You become the ladder. You become the mountain. You become the sky. And from that altitude, everything looks different. You don't react, you design. You don't beg, you broadcast. You don't hope, you are. You walk through life like a tuning fork. Every space you enter, you shift. Not because you try, because you are. That's the essence of the dark chosen ones. They don't dominate. They resonate. They don't compete. They realign. And now that you've remembered the thought, you're one of them. You don't need to be initiated. You already were the moment you chose to believe the truth no one else would say out loud. So what happens now? You live as if it's already done. You breathe as if you've already arrived. You speak as if nothing is missing. And when people ask how you did it, you won't need to explain. They'll feel it. And if they're ready, they'll remember too.